Hey, welcome back. So let's continue with the login flow today. Focus is totally going to be on login. Okay, whatever we have done until now is the sign up flow plus the transition from, let's say, a sign up screen to the login screen. That's what we are at in this tutorial for creating an iOS app using the VIPER architecture. So let's get with it. So whatever we are going to do right now is we already have this. We're already done with the sign up screen where once you sign up, it toggles you back to this screen where you can log into your dashboard screen. So some of the things which are going to happen in this tutorial are you will implement the sign up screen along with the HTTP calls to make that request happen and then validate. And my server will actually return a JWT token, a bearer token, which we can use to actually do the validations for making the subsequent requests. So in this case, let's say once I have logged in, I'm going to store that token to my local DB. Also, I have something on the server side where I can refresh the token whenever it's invalidated or the token is not valid. So that code is also something we will implement today. So on launch, if the token is invalid, you make a request to make it validate. If it is valid, then we will actually keep the user within the dashboard screen instead of logging him out. So let's say if the token is totally something which is blacklisted or something, then the user will obviously be routed back to the login screen to make another login request. So that is what we will try to do today. One is login request, another is a validate request, which will fetch the user details back, and I can store those user details in my local persistent, which is created using realmdb. So let's just get started with whatever we have. We don't have this. We have just entered something right now. Test user at gmail.com. This or testing.com is what I had created on that day as a user, and password being testing123. So we have to log in, use this credential to log into the server. I don't have the login implementation yet, so let's get started with that now. What do we have on the login screen? We have a validate function, which is more like when I click on this, when I click on the login button, it should come here and validate my credentials. If it is valid, then I make that request to login. So you can see that the request is valid because I don't have any kind of validation errors. Let's say I have not entered something here. It's invalid at this point. So let's see. It's invalid, false. So we cannot make that request to make that login working. So this is what we will implement here. If it is valid, then we will say we can just send a completion to the view controller saying whether it is valid or not. So that's what we will do now. Is valid. Let's get rid of that, and I think I can just do a completion with my is valid as the parameter. I'll always like to refer back to my completed code, which is right now available in patent site. So you can always go and download it, not for free. It's a subscription based thing. So you will have to do a subscription there to get access to that code. But that code is to an extent almost complete in terms of like you can actually add groceries to cart right now using the user ID you have logged in with, but something which is pending still is to sync it with the server, those shopping cart items. So that's something I'll be working this week to complete that and upload the latest and almost completed things. Still some things are still pending which I'll be taking up later, but let's just concentrate on the login part today. So I have the completion. Let me just cross check that with my already done implementation, the completed one, so that we are consistent with all the implementations. So yes, so if it is valid, let me also do something. This is fine. A completion block will tell my view controller that I am valid or not, this login is valid or not. Even before that, I can also update some progress. if it is valid, then I can just, this is more like a validation for your client side where you're not hit the server yet. So let's say if my client side validations are complete, I can always update the user. Let's say the login button can become something like a logging in or something. That's what I'll do here. So let me just see whether I have that view thing added. I have something called as update progress, which I can use. I can also maybe modify it to pass a message so that I can just use that to update this message string. So something I already have here, I can maybe use it to just send this instead of having these conditional things. If it is completed, what should I do? If not completed, what should I do? Instead, I can just set this as the message coming from my presenter, so that I don't need to hard code anything on the view controller side. So this is what will happen. So if my validation is client side validation is complete, I will I might just enable this button and disable once it is not complete. So something like so I will only enable this once my validation is complete. So let me do that here. So I already have that implementation. I can do an update progress here. Update progress. I will say logging in dot. That means my validation is complete for the client side, so I can start updating my button to start the logging in process now. So whether the logging in process is complete, I'll say no, because I'm not yet got a response from the server side. So I'm still doing that login process here. So I can do that, and then based on that, if it is completed, my login button will be enabled or disabled. In this case, I have set it to false. So now my login button will be disabled so that I don't make multiple requests for logging in. And title, based on whatever I have received, I'm updating it. And the other things are now I have this completion block. So this is just the UI updation, just to update this login button, as well as even if my login is complete, I might just clear those input fields. So that is something I'll do once the login process is complete. So it's not yet complete. So whatever we are getting here is in the login presenter of this completion. So let's just go back to this validate function in the view controller, which is here somewhere here. So here is a validate function that is happening when we are doing a on login button click. So if it is valid now with this client validation, let me just keep that as if client side validation is completed, is valid, validation is completed. Let's do the login process. Yeah, so we'll do the login API call here. So with that, let's see whether I have the login function. We are not defined it yet. Let me just go back to the presenter. I just have a validate function. Let me define something called as a login function, which will accept email and a password from the client, and maybe I'll have a completion there too. So let me just see what I have already done in my existing implementation. So I have a login function accepting email and password. I don't have a completion here because I can use the view login view to actually update my user once I have made a request. So I just have a login and password as the parameters passed for my login. So let me implement that. login, and then I need to make the use case call from here, which is what the presenter's responsibility is, to make a request to the server through the use case which we would have defined. Let me just see whatever we have done yet, because I think I have done some part to some extent in the last tutorial, so I can just show you whatever is already done there. So I have this login and password, and what do we have in the use case? Presenter does not have a use case yet. Let's create that. So whatever use cases from the interactor we need to consume, let's define that here. So type alias use cases. So I need to have this login function now. So what are the parameters? I think there is something already in the auth interactor for login. Nothing is there, but I think I already have something defined in the service. Auth service has sign up and login, so it's also not there. So let's just go back from this start, where I have the auth HTTP router, which has already defined a login function. The path is already defined. What is the request URL we have defined, and login, what are the requests which we need to send as the auth user. We had defined something called as auth model, which will accept a email, username and password, and if it is a login process, we'll just consider these two, and this will be set to empty. So that's what we have already defined here. So my my auth HTTP router is already ready. All that I need to do is to call similar to how we had done the sign up flow. We'll just define the login flow here. So auth HTTP router dot login, asking for an auth model. So parameters being email and password, which we can pass here. Email, password. That's done. And all I need to do is make a request using the auth HTTP service. Auth, maybe it's just called as HTTP service because it's already defined at the top. Auth HTTP service. That's what we'll use to make that request, and the response you should get back the JSON format. Result in JSON format. That's done. So that's my request response. Obviously I'm going to get back from my server, which is already there. So this is asking for a do catch block. Let's do that. Do catch just has a try. I don't need a pattern, and I'm expecting some error here, which I'll send back to the client, to the UI side. Okay, that's done. So this is my request and this is my response. So how do we handle this now? So I'm gonna get a response, something like, I'll just show you how whatever I have defined in my post, all the functions is my login. So let's see what happens. I'm gonna use all whatever already we had used in the last tutorial to log in a user. Testing.com, password is test123. That's my login. So on login, that's invalid. Test user @testing.com and test123. So totally I was giving a wrong password, test@gmail.com, and my password is test1234. So this should work. So it's giving me a token right now back. So that was something I messed up. So this is how the response is going to come back, as a token, which is the JWT token, which we will store in the app site using Realm database. So this is what we expect here to come back, this token. So let's parse that. So auth HTTP router on login should give me a token if it is valid, those credentials. If not, it should give me an error with 401, like you said, you have seen unauthorized user or something. So that's what is going to happen. So let me just see what I have done as part of the parsing in my Current implementation service. Okay, it's more like grabbing that. Got it. Like the result dot response dot status code. If it is 200, let me proceed with parsing that. Else I will just capture the else I'll just capture the error side and send that error details to the client side. I'll just return here. If not, let me just grab the error. So we already have done something for the error in the last part where we were decoding the I think we had something for this side email error which was different to an extent, but let's see whether we can reuse that. No, it was different in ways where it can give you something like a validation error from the server side as well. So in this case we'll just parse that single error type. Let's say if it was something like this, just giving me something like an error which we can parse easily and send it to the client side. So let's check that. What do I have done? Login error. So I have preferred to use the something called the decodable is what I had preferred to use. Let's create that as well. Just like the sign up error, create a login error. It's more like a tutorial on how to use decodable if you are not familiar with it. Struct codable, which will return me an error of type string. So this is a simple codable which we will use to parse this site. So if login is failing, let's say like login error, I'll capture here and I'll just use JSON decoder dot decode with my login error type and pass that data which is of type response dot data. Is it okay, let me just call it result. In this case I've defined it as result dot data is what my codable type is. So let me also do some stuff here. So I'll just pass that data here. So that's going to be my error, and on error what should I do? I should just return the failure back. So I'll just say a failure and pass that error. I think I've defined it as login error dot error. So that's what I'll do once I receive a failure. JSON decoder throw again. Okay, so let's do a do catch. If this is in case some other error happens, I can even send that back like this. Login, maybe that just error that localized, or maybe user friendly one saying print maybe the actual error for us to see. Login error and then just return login failed. That's the error to the user. Whatever we will show to the user, that's the error. So this is pretty much whatever the error handling part will be like. something. If you have entered some invalid credentials, this is what will come back as the error side. And if you have something like now if it is 200, if success case, what should we do? So for success, it's as easy as get that token, send it back. We'll just use the plain token part. Even here we could have just used that error as the token. We could have used it as a dictionary and parse that error and then send it across. But this is just a demonstration of how you can use codable. But here, if it is a normal case, let's say it's just one parameter, then we can easily do it something like let data is equal to response result dot response dot, I mean it comes through the result side itself, dot value is what we will get, the key value for the as a dictionary we'll get it. So we can use that to, let's just call that as dictionary. And let's parse that token. God, let dictionary, we know that it's going to come as a token. Dictionary as dictionary as a string any, it's going to be string any type, or is it going to be string? Okay, we are just parsing it as a string because this is where it comes back as a dictionary. So we can get that token as this string. So it's expected else. Okay. What? Okay, for this. So we can get the whole thing in within this guard. So if it is a dictionary and if you get this token dictionary element, then we can just send that as the success part. Then just set the success token. Okay, it's in the guard, so keep it outside. If not, then we can send again a failure. Login failed because we did not get a token back. So we can just say login failed in that case. Again, something here, there's some kind of error here, so I cannot even print what is that kind of error. Login error. So that's my login parsing side. Still expected type somewhere. Where is that? Okay, that's something here. So this part is fine. So we have the login flow where we are parsing the success and the failure side. If it is success, we send that token back. If it is failure, then we just send the corresponding messages of what kind of failure. If it is a server failure, it is this one. Something else which is not known, then we send that our regular failure messages. So that's what we have done here. So I think this side, pretty much the auth service side, is complete, and auth service is already having an implementation of auth API which we are passing to the interactor, which already has this login. So this is what we need to pass call in the interactor. Now we already have this. Let's just keep this away for the time being so that we don't get that buggy error. Okay, we are still not done there because we need to return. pretty much done. And now let's go to the interactor, which will accept this auth API's function. Auth interactor, let's call, what does it require? Interactor needs email, password, and then the completion block. Similar to whatever we have, the auth result is whatever, that is also fine. We can use that. The rate escaping. Auth result is something we had defined in the last tutorial. So even in this case, it is a string type which we are going to return because token is of type string. So that's what we will return. This is done. This function is ready. Self.authAPI.login, pass email, password, and you get these success callbacks. Success is the token we get back, and then the failure, which is the error. So we can do something easily here. Success and error. So completion should return here dot success token, and on failure, completion, failure, error. It's simple as that. So this is done. So interactor is almost ready. So this is the function which we have defined in the interactor. Let's go to our presenter of the login screen, which needs that login function now. So login. What's the function type? Let's just grab the same thing, whole thing. Email, password, and completion block. So this is my login, and this being a tuple, I'll have to provide one more empty if it is a single element. It's what I have provided here. So this should compile now. So I have a use case ready. Let's consume that use case from the builder. Use cases, use cases. So use cases, use cases. Self dot use case is equal to use cases. So that's done. So I have the use case coming outside. So this is accepting a use case now. So use case is nothing but a function. Router use case login. Now it should accept the auth interactor, shared. You already have it. Pass that function. That's it. Empty one as well. So the use case is now available to my login interactor. So the login function is available. So I can go and include that login here. We already have a function login which will be triggered from the view controller. So that's what we have here. So I can just call use cases or login. Passing email and password. So that's done. It should give me a callback. So I can always grab that in the closure as a result. Then we can do a switch here. Result. It should give me those two options. If not switch, even I can do something like a guard. God, no, I need a switch because I need the error message. Success and failure. So once you get the success, we can do stuff. Let's break this. So login from here can happen in the background thread. So maybe I can add that background thread part here. Async dispatch async, because it's making a server request. So let's include that inside this. It's fine. So once you get that result, we can update the view from here. Send that message back to the server. Even it can happen here as well. Like if there is a failure, I can just let the client know that the login has failed. So resolved identifier. With this we can keep outside because this is maybe here. So let's see. Let's import the foundation. That's done. Should not give me an error now. I have the result here, which is the token. I receive the token here and the error here. So token is something we need to save to the database. So if it is successful, I need to store the token along with the user. And once that is done, I then can query for the logged in user details and then store that as well. So those are the two things which we will do right now. So first thing, let's see whether token is coming back. Token received. It's not a great idea to print this, but then just for the sake of testing, I'm just using this. Error received, login error received. Error. Let's just try that now. Whatever we get. Let's keep an eye on this console. Let me just enter something invalid. It should return me did I make a call from the view? I did not. Let me go back to the view controller. Here we need to make that call. Login. Pass the control, email control, validation text, and password control, validation text. This is what was missing, because of which it was not making that request. Let's do that once more. Invalid things I'm sending. So you received a login failure message from the client. So pretty much whatever is expected, we received it back. Once it is a valid one, let's say test@gmail.com, test 1234. It should work. It should give me, oh, still it is in logging state. So this is what we need to fix now. Once you get that, it's still disabled and still it says logging in. So once it is completed, we can update the view saying login has completed. So that's what we can do on the presenter side here. Once you receive this, the main thread, you can just say F dot view dot update progress with the message back to login. It's the same login and this is true, so it's completed. So now let's check that again. So once you receive the token, it should reset my view back to login. And enable the button. Test3gmail.com. Testing. It's test 1 2 3 4. It's valid. You got a callback and it just set it back to login again. That's what happened. And it even cleared the view, like whatever we had entered. That's because I already have that in this section, update view, and then on completed reset back my text views to empty. So that's what happened, right? Also we received the, why does it say login error received? Should be the token. Let me just go back. I think that's print error which I made. Token received. Okay, I don't need this anymore because we know that we are receiving a token, which is this, which we will store in the database.